Hello, Magdalena. Thank you for your very intriguing submission. So, you're the first person to sort of do this approach. And this was a grade 1 submission, not actually a level 1. So, right at the beginning, with the new practice routine, I haven't actually heard someone do this yet. You're the first. So, that was really fun for me to listen to. Look, you're an advanced player, and incidentally, after listening to your Lauro or you playing the Lauro, I've actually been looking through it, and I think I will incorporate it into the later grades. The Carora is a great piece, so thank you for that. And I do have some comments to think about, but it's an interesting strategy to go into, because obviously you realize, as I did, because when I go through all of these pieces and record them for lessons and then record demonstrations, there's the challenges of trying to make them as perfect as we can, because when I play them for demonstration purposes, people will always pick up on me if it's like, oh, you used different finger than you wrote, and obviously as a teacher you want to demonstrate as best you can what you'd like, and so it's really a challenge. It's kind of like recording, for a CD. You hear things differently. You're that much more attuned to any blemishes or buzzes or mistakes or what have you. So I'm glad you realized this, and that in fact the practice routines or the pieces provide a different set of challenges, but almost just as challenging as a faster piece, in grade 7 or 8, because everything's so exposed. Your attack, your consistency, you hear any clicks of the nail, the notes are far apart, so everything is very exposed. So it's a very big challenge. I'm just saying that from my perspective, and to perhaps give you perspective on the fact that if you found this really difficult, that's why. It's because it is. Because classical guitar has challenges for any piece of repertoire at any stage. We can always be hearing it in different ways and refining it. In terms of a productive approach to how to use the materials, I might have to give this some more thought, but I don't think that it makes the most sense to go grade by grade for you. That's my gut instinct. I think that there'll be diminishing returns. So for instance, I think this was a good idea. It helps you slow down, and it helps you focus on some core things that you maybe needed attention. But moving forward, I don't know if that's going to have as good of effect going through grade by grade, but it might. I've never had anyone do this that's in your situation. One idea would be to skip. So for instance, from now you go to grade 3 and do that grade. Unless you feel like there's some technical gaps and you really want to go through the lessons one by one, but I don't see any in particular. So it's more about slowing yourself down to really reset your playing the way you want to, and then sort of just inching up. And so maybe grade 3 or grade 4, and then the next one you might do grade 6, and then you 7, 8, and then I think that would make a steady progression. But I don't think it would be necessary to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Another idea would be to do grades in tandem. So for instance, grade 7 and 8 will be coming out this fall, and perhaps moving forward you can start grade 3 and grade 7 and do them in tandem, and that way you're addressing some approaches to guitar which are very exposed and have the challenges that simplicity brings to it, but you're also pushing yourself in terms of the more challenging repertoire and techniques, because I think they both have their virtues. So that's some food for thought, but it's just my gut instinct that going through 1 through 8 is not going to be necessarily the best way. I think you have to feed your advanced side of your playing as well, and your musical side. I don't think you should neglect that. So there's a couple of small points, and then there's one sort of larger idea I'd like you to think about in general. So one of the smaller points was about what I call tone compensation, and I believe we talked about this actually in the performance seminar. Let me see if I can find an example of it. Okay, so was that an A finger? Sorry. That note there, it's the open E, right? Of course it is. It was different to the others. So I'm going to talk about sort of an approach to listening that you might be interested in, but this is how I listen to advanced players. And so that note didn't fit the rest. And I think that, you know, there is a distance between the fingers in the right hand, and that distance on the guitar is not insubstantial. I'm not sure if you played that with your A finger or not, but the tone, first of all, the open E string is something we have to listen for and compensate for. So it's brighter, usually brighter than, especially we've been playing on the second string or what have you, and then we suddenly play on the first string, it's very easy to get that sound. And it's very easy to get that sound for two reasons. One, that it's got, the first string usually has a different tone anyway than the second or third, but also because we will often use the third finger, or, you know, I guess, yeah, the A finger, yes, too early in the morning, it's A finger. And the distance that we have actually makes it brighter because it's more ponticello. And you do have that in your string crossing, you know, that you tend to go, as we all do, kind of on that angle. And I believe we talked about this in the lesson. So I'd like you to hear more that when you get to the treble strings, you need to compensate sometimes for that distance in the hand. So you might have to, as you just play an A finger, you actually extend it out further so that it's on the same plane on the string, so you get a similar tone. But then there's also just simply the listening. It's just a different tone. So a couple, not as... Yeah, it's not really present there. I mean, in the technical routines, you do move down a little bit as the plane. You can just sort of see that, you know, your basses are towards the middle of the sound hole, and then by the trebles are at the back. And it's small, but it's just something to think about. And, you know, I'll be nitpicking in this video because, sorry, robocall came in. Yeah, so I'll be nitpicking in this video because you're very well set up. Your right and left hand and posture all fine and working really well. So the main thing I actually wanted to focus on, because I think, you know, just the process of this was really the benefit. I don't know if there's going to be huge benefit in my response, but what I get from your playing and also your self-assessment a little bit is that you are focused on a technical side, that you want to slow down and practice between the accuracy. Accuracy is something that came up a couple times. I don't particularly have an issue with your accuracy. Every now and then you could be super nitpicky, as you could with anybody, and sort of say this could be better, what have you. But really, I mean, you're a very strong player and an accurate player. What I did miss a little bit is hearing your musical ideas. So I know that there was some movement. I saw just then, you know, movement to ponticello. I didn't hear it as well as I saw it, actually. But I'd like you to explore more of a creative approach. So, as I said, there's a way that I do listen to more advanced players, and that is essentially, I listen to someone play, and you listen as if you're listening to the piece of music and it's as it's meant to be. You know, it's sort of how you conceive it. It's almost like listening to a recording. You put in a CD of a symphony, like there's Beethoven's Fifth or there's the Eroica, and then that's how it's supposed to sound. And if there's something that doesn't sound quite right, you sort of say, okay, hang on, what's going on there? And how can we address this, and what might be the underlying issues? And that's a slightly different way of approaching it, because I feel like you lead technique first, and you're doing this because you want to reset technique. But I'd rather you approach it with the challenge of, these are simple pieces, and it is a challenge to make them deeply musical, but it's possible. And I want you to know that you have permission as an advanced player to mess around with these pieces. You know, you do not have to follow the fingerings as written. You know, so what is it, like the waltz? I want to hear your ideas. It could be ideas, and you know, we could change fingering. You know, you could do that. They could change the style. It could be as simple as that. Articulation, some slight changes, or really clear shaping. Introduction of rubato and thing. Just some theatrics even. There's so much more that can be added into this, and you're doing it almost as in that there's some restrictions on you, and I think your technique is liberated you from those restrictions. So I want to see where you go with your creative ideas. So that would be my suggestion, my ask of you, is to really explore that. And you know, for instance, the Salute to the Morning Sun, it's the first time I've heard someone else play it, actually. Where was it? I mean, I know you're playing it with the metronome, but it does start out... No, what am I doing? Anyway, let's find it. You know what I'm talking about. And I want to hear... It starts out fortissimo. There's very few fortissimos around in my books, you know, in the early stages. So fortissimo really is... I did Ponticello already, but you get the idea. And then you have somewhere to go as you come to the end. The diminuendo was excellent, and the rallentando, everything at the end was excellent, very nice. But the beginning, boom. And I didn't get that sense in many of the pieces with the dynamics. For instance, even the C major scale. You know, just really strong and bold. And feel free to imbue. You know, imbue means to sort of put into, or color, or give a character to, basically imbue these exercises with musicality, and also go above and beyond. So if you're working on a really simple exercise like this, yes, one approach might be to like really hone in on the right hand position, and I think you did that, and you're focusing on clarity and everything, but it's very good. So maybe you could add in, you know, dynamics or articulations. You can add layers on top of it once you really master it. And I do understand that I'm saying these things, and the technical routines are very specific, you know, to play this and that. I'm just trying to throw out ideas about ways to approach it. So the first step with that kind of musical approach is not so much to play, actually, as to sit down with a piece of music and develop a strong concept. So we, you know, the waltz, you've played it already, so you could sit down. You could make it kind of Johann Strauss Viennese waltz. There's articulations in there, there's rubato, there's dynamics. If you come up with a strong idea first, then you're starting from that place, and then you have to fill it in with a technique to achieve that idea. And so I don't hear that in your playing. And one part about this, going back to the very early material, is don't neglect the fact that you have to treat every piece like a masterpiece. Otherwise, it just becomes very rote and exercise-like. So that's my suggestion, to sort of lead music with music first. And I understand, and I think it's admirable to go back to these early stages. Not that I think that you need too much remedying. Sometimes that might be a good thing for someone to do if they need to fix up their technique. I also wonder if you teach, and that this might be a good way of sort of getting yourself back to the beginner's mind and having that approach. I'd be interested if you are, and we can talk about it. So there's some sort of food for thought. Obviously, it's very good playing. There's nothing particularly that I would point out as saying this needs to be improved or what have you. I would like to see you approach. I'm happy to see you do grade 2 if you want, but maybe grade 3 or 4 would be a logical skip, and you'd get more out of it. There's more things to delve into. But I'd like to see you go for more of a musical approach, and you have the green light to really play around with these and experiment. Maybe some things will go too far, but then you might get little kernels of inspiration out of a fingering or a phrasing. And I want more playfulness and a bit more experimentation, and definitely leading with musical concepts first. I want to achieve this, I can hear it in my head, and now I'm going to execute it on the guitar. And if you're not doing it satisfactorily, then why is the technique not supporting you? Taking that hierarchy as opposed to trying to perfect your movements, because that will affect your music in the end, and I don't think you really want that result, actually. So thank you. It was a really interesting submission to review, and I hope that was useful, and I'm happy to talk about it more if you wanted to come into one of the sessions and talk about it more. I think it'd be really interesting. So thank you, Magdalena, and congratulations on your grade 1 certificate. Bye.